agenda?
Item B, Chairman's remarks.
I have none at this time. Next item on the agenda?
Item C, approval of the September 15th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Motion is in order. Did I hear someone move? Okay, moved by Commissioner Marecki, supported by Commissioner Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, this action stands approved. Next item on the agenda?
Item D1, under new business, communication from James Heath, Corporation Counsel, forwarding the July to September 2022 meeting reports on the criminal justice complex.
Okay, Commissioners, you received these communications from staff as they were forwarded to us by Mr. Heath. At this time, if there's no questions as it relates to any of these reports, a motion is in order to receive and file.
So moved.
Is there support? Moved and supported to receive and file. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, this action stands approved. Next item on the agenda.
Item D2, an update from James Heath, Carter Fisher, Jay Shander, Bill Rath, and Victoria Ennis Edwards regarding the status of the criminal justice complex.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon.
James Heath, Wayne County Corporation Counsel. Carter Fisher left out for a second. He will returning momentarily. Victoria Ennis Edwards has been dealing, some of you may know, with some illnesses regarding her father, and she will not be here with us this afternoon. So thank you for the opportunity to discuss with you, and thank you for receiving the reports that we have filed. If you read them, as you know, the kind of trajectory of how things are going, we are still in the midst of construction, but we are in the relatively final stages of construction. And so our focus is turned toward the transition phase of things. And so that's where I'm going to primarily offer my remarks. As I said at the full board, parking is an issue that we continue to look at very closely. We have reconvened our parking work group. That is a group composed of parking consultants, CGL, our owner's representative, outside counsel, as well as some representatives from end users. Also, we have spoken with Chair Bell about having a member of commission staff, and so she may announce that at some point soon. That group will be charged with making recommendations to the executive, ultimately things that will also be discussed with this commission regarding the issues that you all have raised: parking, who parks where, how many spaces, how that framework will work. And so that is something that we are turning our attention to in a very earnest way, and we'll have more to update you with respect to that. I do want to read into the record, at least for this committee, the actions that you all took just moments ago in full board, which go a long way towards helping us address our parking needs. Prior to, so this time yesterday, we envisioned roughly 1,730 parking spaces at the CJC, and that was made up of just over 300 on-site parking spaces, so spaces at the facility within the confines of the complex, 1,126 parking spaces in our off-site lots. There are 2 of them. Street parking, there's going to be parking in the area that is not metered, but will be similar to what exists right now in certain places around Frank Murphy, street parking where people can come visit. And then before the demolition that you all approved at Lincoln Hall of Justice, roughly 100 parking spaces. Because of the actions that you took today, that number should rise to about 2,442. And that's a significant number in that it gets us much closer to the 2,500 or so spots that we are anticipating. And that is a conservative estimate right now for parking needs at the entire facility. The reason that it is so difficult to get those numbers because we are building a facility at the exact same time where visitation rates and in-person hearings and the like are at the most unknown. You know, as I've said before, where this 5 years ago, we would stand outside of the current facilities with a clicker and just, you know, see how many cars come and park. Because of remote hearings and the like, and everyone has not gone back to full complement with respect to the courts and others, as well as some changes we're making with, folks working remotely and the like, it's a more challenging moving target. We have engaged firm Walker Consulting Services to help us with that number of exactly what we need. And because of the actions you all have taken, we are hitting that mark and feel pretty comfortable about that. And so between with the Riopelle lot, that the purchase that you approved, roughly 260 spaces involved with that, another 450 with the demolition of the youth home, which will be extremely beneficial to those who need to park in the area. As I said, we continue to have discussions about, and Walker is helping us with this, with looking at the financial impact of what we will charge visitors and employees, if anything, to park. A final decision has not been made there, but I think it's important to recognize how the actions you took 2 years ago almost directly impact the decisions that will be coming forward. Because we got out of the concession agreement with Bedrock, we have the ability to, and that's with respect to those offsite lots, we have the ability to really do what the county decides is best with respect to that, as opposed to Rock owning those lots, being able to charge, and us not having any control, and for us not being able to compete with them per the terms of the concession agreement with other parking. And so this commission set the tone for the decisions which we are on the cusp of making. And so as soon as we have those decisions, and I'll be able to come speak with you about that. In addition to parking, FF&E contracting is something that is very important. Furnitures, fixtures, and equipment. As I've indicated, we have restructured our team along with our Aaron Wagner upon his return to the county. We have added several employees from Corporation Counsel who now work with our end users as contract managers. And so the contracts that you see coming before you, whether it's the Riopelle agreement, whether it's contracts for the CMM system, those contracts have been worked through by this team of folks from Corporation Counsel. And as well, I want to highlight Economic Development, who loaned us a person to work with us to push those contracts through to commission. And I appreciate your willingness to review them on a timely basis. One of the best examples of how this contracting process is working and how we're really taking a strong look at what the needs of the folks who are going to be at the CJCR, I think, is the contract for video visitation that we are reviewing. And so I know that's been an issue. Commissioners, you know that the structure of visitation is different in the new facility versus the old. The new facility, state of the art, in line with what's happening all over the country, is really designed for virtual visits. And that was a process that was happening even pre-COVID. It even makes more sense for us right now. And so one of the things that we thought was appropriate, also in line with kind of where criminal justice discussions are taking us, is to make the rates for the video visitations, emails, and all those sorts of services for communication for those who are inside of our facility as cheap as possible. And whereas we have had existing contracts which allow for minimum payments to the county, and that money is used by the sheriff's department for their operations. what our county executive and our chief financial officer and I have discussed, and what we have assured the sheriff's office is any reduction in getting the lowest possible rate for inmates to email their loved ones, to have video chats with them and the like, really putting us as a leading edge in the entire country. That will not result in reduced funding for the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. That is something that that we have committed to making up in subsequent budgets for them. And so that's an important
What
step.
has been the sheriff's department's request, because access and part of the rehabilitation of sort effort should be ongoing communication with family and loved ones. And it is it's quite burdensome and costly on families because of the two-way and the costs associated with being in touch with inmates. Specifically, I'm talking about within the county jail. I know they're detained there, and even there's some short-term sentencing there, but that is something I consistently hear as I'm moving around the community. So that's something I would like for us to have a broader, more direct conversation about how can we lower the costs, if at all, to lessen the impact on inmates communicating with their families.
So you're 100% right. So when you see the contracts that we present that will come for commission for approval, we will show you side by side what those rates are today and what they will be in the new facility. And it's really in line, and we are going to be a leader in Wayne County across the entire country.
That's great to hear.
And we will be setting that standard. And so I think your comments are well received.
I really appreciate how your team and everyone involved in this has been focusing on details, and it's been really a back and forth as it relates to issues that are being raised by us and the end users, and how you all have done your best to at least try to take note of that and go and try to find some resolution. Before I ask commissioners for are there any additional questions? You mentioned the JDF, the demolition. You mentioned, of course, the action we took today associated with parking. And I'm glad, once again, to hear that you all are taking note as far as our concern, as far as the cost that would be attributed to users of the facility. The JDF, the footprint within the new complex. This is something that I don't recall there was a focus on, but the educational services that will be provided inside of the facility. Next time we go on tour, I guess at some point, I absolutely want to see the footprint for where educational services will be provided inside of the facility. Are you aware of any of those parameters?
Unfortunately, Commissioner, I don't have particular information for you today about exactly the square footage inside the facility of where education takes place. What I will tell you generally, in a broad sense, is that with respect to the construction of the new facility, we took all of the programming that is required under the state, but then also best practices in terms of programming and design for the youth who are in JDF into play. And so if you would like, even before your next tour, if you would like, I can have at our next meeting of our subcommittee, we can have someone who can, give you more detailed information about the educational programming and I guess really the use of space directly inside the JDF. I think it'd be another conversation about exactly what that programming will be. That'll come later. But in terms of the use of space inside that JDF, that's something that we can put on an agenda for future meetings.
That would be appreciated. And, it was this committee, we began that conversation, at least regarding the whole family court and the civil, family court agreement and those things there. And, just in this meeting, I'm just going to ask, is there, at what sort of level is the acknowledgement or the forethought is taken into account that this use may be a future tie-in use to this complex? is there any movement, shift, consideration as we, come to the closure as relates to getting this complex online?
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, the answer for the most part is no. And so the design for this facility
Not contemplating any
is not
additional
contemplating
operations or services?
additional operations and services, because as you know, the design for this was worked out years and years ago.
Okay.
However, in all of our conversations related to things outside of the facility, as you know, we are keeping in mind what may come to pass in the years to come. But with respect to design for the CJC, it is being designed, and we are setting it up to operate
Right.
as
What we have right
a
on.
complete unit. That's
Right.
correct.
Okay, so the old Lincoln Center, the Lincoln Hall is going to be demolished.
Portions of it.
Portions
portions
of it.
of it,
Okay,
yes.
so the actual Lincoln Center, the actual hall, there's been no determination of how and how that would be disposed of?
No, that's complete. That is part of the.
You keep correcting me. Rick.
That is part of the joint work group that I described in the last
Yes.
meeting with respect to the court and the executive side about future uses for the operating functions with respect to Lincoln Hall, the operating functions with respect to the civil side of the court. And so what you all approved earlier today was the demolition of aspects of Lincoln Hall that are no longer being used.
Okay, understood. I was just trying to get a little pierce into the future and potentially. Yeah. Okay, so now let me ask commissioners, do you all have any questions and or would you like to hear any other reports from, go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Mr. Heath, James, the demolition that we approved today, that's the facility that's going to be taken, or the property by Rock, correct?
No.
Okay.
So what you approved in terms of demolition, well, you approved with respect to demolition for Lincoln Hall, the former youth home, and another building that is building C, I believe it was, not being used presently. County already owns that. It was something that was going to need to be demolished anyway, but we are doing it in conjunction with the CJC process because of the parking synergies that we've already discussed, as well as the parking synergies that we already discussed with respect to the CJC.
So the buildings, the properties that that Rock is getting, all the demolition, because I know the old jail or the attempt at a new jail was demolished by him at his expense. So all those other properties that's part of what he's getting, he's responsible fully for those.
100%. The only way that, so yes, he is responsible for the demolition and what is going to happen there. Well, I say he, Bedrock is responsible for that. Exactly what their intended uses are, I don't know officially. And so I wouldn't be able to say. What I can tell you though, is that the only way we would as a county have responsibilities there, and this is why we are so thankful for the work you and your colleagues have done with us in terms of getting contracts approved for transition and as well as FF&E, is if we were to hold over. And so after the turnover date for the new facility, a new CJC, we have 6 months to move out of the buildings that we currently occupy: Frank Murphy, the old jail, JDF, and divisions 1 and 2 JDF. And so the holdover fee is $500,000 a month. And so if we make our deadline for moving out 6 months after the turnover in the new facility, we have no more responsibility with respect to Bedrock on that.
So you'll keep us advised if it looks like we're not going to meet that deadline, correct?
You'll hear wailing from the 30th floor and other things of that nature. So yes, but we feel good about the progress that we're making. And I have every anticipation that we will meet that goal. But this committee and the larger commission would be the first to know if I had concerns that something was going to prevent us from doing that.
Would say it's understandable that you wouldn't know what's planned for those properties, which it seems to have changed multiple times. Thank you.
That's why I was trying to get a little peek and see if that was a new family court, civil court piece. No, so let me ask you dates. Can you give us projected dates now as it relates to, yes, can I see your pen for a second?
We had with respect to completion, I think is what you're asking me, Commissioner.
Okay, pardon me?
With respect to completion of facilities, which is what
Correct.
you're asking me. So we had a meeting about a week ago with Bedrock as well as with the general contractor Barton Malow, and the dates that they gave us for turnover. And so that by turnover, the facilities are all completed. They are ready for you to move into. They told us was April of 2023. I'm going to say that with this caveat, those were dates presented by Barton Malow. And at the time of our meeting about a week ago, Bedrock was still reviewing those dates, but I think that's a pretty comfortable time frame and is in line with what I've been saying to you. And so let's just say, for the sake of our discussion right now, April of 2023, we'd have 6 months from that period to move in. And so we need to be operating and into these facilities really by about this time next year.
So so you, I'm sure, are paying close attention to any movement as it relates to those dates. But there were also some dates that we were given that was certain actions or certain thresholds that were supposed to be, that are to be met on this side of the calendar. So between now and the end of the year, there were certain, I guess, benchmarks or certain dates that were associated with certain actions.
Well, I mean, the primary dates that we are concerned about are, the turnover date and the substantial completion.
Okay.
We did bring up, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, so we did internally have dates primarily related to, for instance, our end users having various programming information about how they're going to operate in the new facilities. For instance, with respect to approval of contracts, and we're working backwards. And so a good example is the video visitation contract that I discussed. Getting new equipment and all that sort of lead time, we said, okay, we're going to count backwards. And so we know that we have to have it approved by the commission and operational in order for us to get into the facility, because if the inmates can't visit with their loved ones and the like, we're not ready to move in. We are meeting those dates. What I can do, Commissioner, is in the days to come, I think probably within about a week after those newest dates are solidified with us, provide you with a written update as to turnover and all of that, so you can kind of have that for your records.
That will be helpful. And then update as it relates to, I guess, of past couple of meetings, we talked about the environmental question as far as costs associated with this CJC.
Yeah, so we continue to be in negotiations with ROC on several things. And right now, the flavor of the day is environmental, specifically with respect to our off-site lots. And one thing that you said in a last hearing, which is true, any construction project in that area you're going to need to do some substantial environmental assessments. And that's just building in an urban area like Detroit, area that any sort of industrial area. And so that's something that we are continuing to take a look at.
What's the stickler who's going to pay for it? That's the sticking point, or, you know, because
All of our discussions with Rock about who's going to pay for something. So, we are working with CGL, our consultants. We are working with an environmental consulting firm as well that the county has hired. And we are closely examining the definitive agreement and making sure that the county is appropriately remediating any environmental concerns which may exist, and that we are holding Rock responsible for their portion of whatever needs to be remediated. And so those are ongoing conversations that we have been having for some time now. They are coming to a head with respect to one of our lots at least, but it's not something that has concluded. So I can't say all that much detail about it, but it's something that we pay a close amount of attention to. This is one, and to Commissioner Anderson's point in our last hearing, the offsite lots are those that were constructed by Rock, and so there's an obligation for us to split costs with respect to remediation and the like, as opposed to the newer lots which we are paving, which would be our responsibility. And so we are just trying to be good stewards of not only the county's purse strings, but also the environmental integrity that our citizens deserve. And so
absolutely,
we're working closely with that.
The community residents in that area are very hypersensitive as relates to environmental concerns and issues. So
I've met the commissioner from that district, and so I think you're right. And so, the other thing that we continue to work closely with that is becoming very important. I know Daryl Jones and Michael Al from our buildings group are very much concerned about training for our existing employees on the new systems in the new facility. And so it is not, as simple as a, 3-hour course on how you work the generators and all that sort of stuff. And so we have begun our planning now. Training requirements were part of the contract that we signed with the developer. And so we are working with them to begin that right after the new year in anticipation of turnover of these very complicated systems.
Any other questions, staff, before we go to Carter Fisher?
And I just want to, if I could say one more thing that I want to report. We continue to have conversations as well with our end users. And so I know at your last hearing, the prosecutor's office was here and raised some concerns. We have subsequently met with them. Some of their concerns relate to shredding contracts because there is not, they are going into a paperless environment for their files. As you know, the CJC is not designed to carry all of the legacy paper for end users into that facility. And so there's a good amount of scanning and digitizing that is required for the prosecutor's office to lessen its paper footprint. We have been working with.
Have y'all worked with them?
We have been working with them,
and that it wouldn't come out their budget. And earlier there were some concerns that that would impact the budget.
Well, there's one county budget, and so
I'm saying and so the appropriation for that.
What I can report, what I can report is that we've made tremendous progress in getting the contracts together such that the prosecutor's office will be able to do the scanning that they need to do and implement the case management system, which had already been budgeted, which, they just needed to get the document scanned to go into. And so I'm just reporting that those conversations, that we made progress in that regard, and those conversations are ongoing. Also have spoken with, as recently as yesterday, with the clerk's office. And that's an example of ongoing and sometimes, challenging discussions, right, with our end users. And so we made some real progress on several issues, better understanding some of the concerns they had about the workers that they have in the new facility, what workspace requirements they have and how we can accommodate them, and then explaining some of the tough decisions, frankly, that have been made with respect to overall staff. Those conversations are going to be ongoing, but that's just an example of the discussions which are important for this. And so just wanted to give you a general update on that, Commissioner.
Okay. Yes, thank you. So, Mr. Fisher, do you have any information for us?
Before I get too far into it, I forgot to do this earlier and I should have. I really wanted to thank commission staff for the review work that they've done and just the collaborative approach that they've had to the contracts that we've been bringing before you on the CJC. A lot of them are very complicated and we're bringing them sort of a lot at a time and in a short amount of time. And they've been very thorough and again, just very collaborative with us. So I really appreciate that. But I just did want to update you a few things on construction. As James mentioned, you know, we are sort of winding down the build out of this facility, and we're moving more into a point where the county has more control of what goes inside the buildings now, and focusing a little bit more on furniture and technology and things of that nature, as well as just the move-in generally. But we are still reaching a few construction milestones that I wanted to highlight. One of which, just to sort of signify how close we're getting to the end of this, August of this year was the first month that the project architect did not issue any new bulletins. Bulletins are how they change sort of the actual construction as it happens on the ground from the written plans. And even in slow months, we would have dozens of bulletins before now. So that sort of just gives you a sense of how far the construction progress has come, and there's just not much to update anymore. We're also approaching the 2 million man hours worked on the project. That we should pass that number either at the end of this month or early in November. So that sort of gives you a sense of the scope of the project to date and how much work has been done on it. And lastly, in terms of construction updates, the area for A&A Deli has been completed as a white box, and we're now ready for A&A Deli to move in and begin the build out of their own, the actual tiles and counter space and things like that. So because this body approved that contract recently, we're now in a position to move forward there and have them in place by the time the building opens. So we're pretty pleased with the progress there. And again, thank you for your consideration of that contract.
Any questions? There being none, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Okay, Mr. Heath, is there any additional information that you? Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item on the agenda?
Item E, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I know of none. Next item on the agenda?
Item F, public comments.
Okay, let's see, is there anyone on Zoom who want to address this committee? Madam Clerk, would you peruse and see if you see any hands up and also do we have any emails?
No hands are up on Zoom, and we have not received any emails.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda?
Adjournment.
Motion is in order. Moved and supported.